In his book, The Elephant and the Blind, Thomas Metzinger suggests that the best candidate for minimal phenomenal experience is the experience known as pure consciousness. Thomas draws a distinction between pure consciousness with thoughts and perceptions and pure consciousness without thoughts and perceptions. My focus today will be pure consciousness without thoughts and perceptions, which can also be referred to as complete stillness of mind. I'm going to compare two forms of meditation that aim for this complete stillness: prototypical focused attention practice, as found in Buddhism, and the do-nothing practice developed by the Australian psychiatrist Ainslie Meares in the 1960s. I've been researching the do-nothing practice full-time for the past 7 years, and I've been doing this by comparing it to other forms of meditation, and in particular, focused attention practice. I'm especially interested in the comparison with focused attention practice because it is the form of Buddhist practice most closely associated with complete stillness. In focused attention practice, the meditator focuses attention on a meditation object, such as the breath, and returns to that object if the mind wanders. At an advanced stage, it is said that the object is relinquished or disappears, and this leaves the complete stillness. In do-nothing practice, the meditator gives up all doing, control, and effort. The mind is allowed to wander freely, and it is said to gradually settle and calm, leaving only the stillness. In my first big study, I used a scientific method known as evidence synthesis to compare descriptions of do-nothing practice in expert texts with descriptions of focused attention practice and one other practice. The study involved a systematic, transparent, and extremely detailed review of 135 expert texts. One big discovery was that the descriptions of the stillness in the do-nothing practice are very similar to those in the focused attention practice. For example, for each practice, the stillness is described as the essential nature of the mind or being, as extremely simple, and as involving calm, naturalness, effortlessness, freedom, the essence of knowledge or knowing, and an absence of subject-object duality. Another discovery was that based on the expert texts, accessing the stillness is much more difficult and takes much longer in focused attention practice than in do-nothing practice. In focused attention meditation, it is said to often require years of intensive practice, whereas in do-nothing meditation, it is said to commonly require only 20 to 40 minutes per day over a few days, weeks, or months. These findings suggest that do-nothing practice may provide a shortcut to the stillness. However, this seems curious. Why would the Buddhists advocate a much more difficult and much longer path to the same experience? Surely they would be aware of any shortcut. I had to look very closely to find any differences between the stillness in the practices, but I did find one, and I think it helps to answer this question. Upon reaching the stillness in the focused attention practice, attention is focused single-pointedly on the stillness. Developing that focus requires meticulous training of attention prior to reaching the stillness, and this is typically difficult and takes a long time. The stillness in the do-nothing practice does not involve focused attention, and that practice therefore does not require attentional training. This study suggests that the do-nothing practice does provide a shortcut to complete stillness, but that the attentional quality in the stillness is different to that in focused attention practice. In Buddhism, it is considered important that there is a high degree of focus in the stillness because having a still and highly focused mind is seen as necessary in the larger project of working towards enlightenment, which can involve other practices, states, stages, and so on. In do-nothing practice, Having a high degree of focus in the stillness is seen as unnecessary. That's because in do nothing practice, the aim is not Buddhist enlightenment. The aim is simply to improve one's life and the lives of others by living with greater calm, naturalness, freedom, and so on. And this is said to follow from accessing the form of stillness without attentional focus. In my second big study, I compared do nothing practice to two forms of focused attention practice, one from Tibetan Buddhism and the other from Theravada Buddhism. Rather than examining expert texts, in this study, I looked at reports of participants who had attended specific retreats or classes. We had over 250 participants, and these were committed practitioners from within the three traditions. The do nothing participants were asked about their deepest experience of stillness during class and home practice over a 7-day period. And the focused attention participants were asked about their deepest experience of stillness during a 5 to 10-day retreat. Using a structured questionnaire, participants were presented with 48 types of mental content that the expert texts report or imply are present or absent in the stillness in all three practices. Participants indicated the extent to which each item was part of their experience on a scale ranging from 1, no/none, to 7, very high. We found that do nothing participants reported a deeper and more absorptive experience of stillness than the focused attention participants. They also reported having the experience for a significantly greater proportion of their total practice and being significantly more confident that they could have it again in their next session. We obtained these positive findings for the do nothing practice, despite the do nothing participants reporting significantly fewer lifetime hours practice, doing significantly fewer hours of practice in the period targeted in the research, and doing classes and home practice rather than retreats. These findings are striking, and they're consistent with the understanding that do nothing practice provides a shortcut to complete stillness. There are, however, some limitations of the research design. We were dealing with experienced practitioners, so it was not possible to randomly allocate participants to the groups. That meant there were differences between groups on background variables, such as lifetime hours practice, and these could have led to differences in how the questionnaire items were interpreted and how ratings were applied. Another issue that arises for almost all studies of experienced meditators is what Thomas Metzinger calls theory contamination. It is unrealistic to think that the report of an experience will perfectly reflect the actual experience. Reports are likely contaminated to some degree by extrinsic sources, such as traditional teachings and texts, and it's difficult for researchers to gauge the extent of that contamination. For my third study, I decided to go right back to the beginning and look at meditation naive participants doing their first session of do nothing practice. That meant I could randomly allocate participants into the do nothing and focused attention practices, which ensured that there were no significant differences on background variables. Examining meditation naive participants also had the advantage that participants had not been contaminated by background knowledge from within the meditation traditions. This study was not designed to test whether do nothing practice is a shortcut to complete stillness. In general, we would not expect do nothing participants to experience complete stillness in their first session. The findings do, however, support the shortcut understanding, and I will explain this further as we go. The idea behind this study was that if there is some fundamental difference between doing as in focused attention practice, and doing nothing, as in do nothing practice, we might see a difference in experience and physiology even in a single session of practice. In this study, we examined the subjective experience and heart signal, ECG, of participants in a 15-minute session of do nothing practice. We compared do nothing practice with two active controls, focused attention practice and an audiobook, which was an excerpt on the discovery of plate tectonics from a Bill Bryson book. We had over 150 participants, university students, and we randomly allocated them into one of these 3 quiet time exercises. In the testing sessions, participants were first left alone for 5 minutes, looking at a fixation cross, while I recorded their baseline ECG. A little later, they were left alone again to do the 15-minute quiet time exercise, while sitting upright with their eyes closed. The instructions for the exercise were delivered by audio recording played on laptop speakers. I scripted the instructions and I voiced the audio recordings. After the exercise, participants completed an online questionnaire asking about various dimensions of their experience. The study is novel in that we took active steps to minimize theory contamination. In the instructions for the meditation practices, we only included words about the meditation experience that we considered were essential for conveying the meditation technique. We left out words like calm, ease, rest, and stillness. We said nothing about the background, purposes, or effects of the practices. And we didn't use the word meditation or give the practices names. The meditation practices were matched on structure, number of words, and duration of silence. The instructions were provided in the first half of the session and were followed by nearly 8 minutes of silence. Do nothing participants typically reported that their experience during the exercise was very positive and that the session was easy. They gave high ratings for the questionnaire items positive and pleasant, and they reported a high degree of calm, relaxation, and rest, and little discomfort, tension, anxiety, worry, restlessness, or boredom. The study had 4 primary measures which we pre-registered: a measure of self-reported calm, self-reported difficulty/easiness, heart rate, and heart rate variability, HRV. We examined heart rate and HRV on the basis that they indicate parasympathetic nervous system response, a relaxation response. All 3 exercises significantly decreased heart rate and increased HRV relative to baseline, which indicates that they each activated a parasympathetic response. At the group effects level, we found no significant difference between the 3 exercises for any of the 4 primary measures. For HRV, however, we found a significant interaction between group and baseline, and I would talk you through this using this chart. The y-axis is change in HRV from the baseline to the end of the quiet time. If the value is above 0, it means that HRV increased during the quiet time, which is considered desirable. The x-axis is not time, it is the participant's baseline HRV. What this chart indicates is that for participants with low baseline HRV, do nothing practice boosted HRV significantly more than the 2 active controls. Previous studies have found that low baseline HRV is associated with anxiety and other forms of psychopathology. A plausible interpretation of our finding is therefore that for the participants most in need of a boost in parasympathetic response, do nothing practice provided a significantly greater boost than the active controls, including focused attention practice. The finding does not show that do nothing practice provides a shortcut to complete stillness, but it is consistent with that idea. We see this big physiological response in the first session of practice, and do nothing participants also reported significantly more of an empty mind than focused attention participants. If there was enough time after the testing sessions, I asked participants about their experiences in the quiet time. I didn't want to contaminate their responses, so I would begin with an open question like, how did you find the exercise? And I would sometimes ask the follow-up question, what was happening with your thoughts? In the Do Nothing texts, it is said that as the meditator learns to give up doing, thoughts become random and illogical, and that when this occurs, one is well on the path to the stillness. In our informal conversations, 19 of the 55 Do Nothing participants spontaneously referred to their thoughts being random, meandering, drifting, moving toward different topics or places, or otherwise moving freely. In our conversations, 10 of the 55 participants indicated they had moments or periods where thoughts were absent, there was nothing in their mind, or their mind was blank and empty. Participant 2P said that they really liked the session. They said it was the first time they had been so empty-minded and that they loved that feeling. They said that at the end of the 15 minutes, they were just getting to the point of really not doing, and that they would have liked the session to go for longer. Participant WZ said that the exercise was relaxing. I asked what was happening in their mind during the silence, and they said, I didn't think of anything. They said, I had some passing thoughts, but then it felt like I got into the zone a bit. I asked what happened when the thoughts passed, and they said that nothing happened. I asked if this was an experience they were used to having, and they said it was something new. They said that usually in daily life, they would have lots of thoughts coming at the same time. They said that in the exercise, once I calmed down, I started to drop the thoughts. They said, I think it just cleared my mind. Participant S3 said to me, it feels like all my life I've been thinking, and this is the first time I realized I do not have to think. They said that their mind was wandering for the first couple of minutes, and that after that, it was just empty. I asked whether the experience in the session was positive, and they said, very positive. Participant S7 said that initially their mind was sort of free-flowing to random things, but after that, there was just nothing, no thoughts. They said that at the beginning, they were quite focused on their surroundings and that even a slight sound would give them an unpleasant shock. Later, they said it was like their senses were numbed. They were no longer startled by sounds as they were much less alert to them. This participant said it was surprising that they had this positive experience involving an absence of thoughts, loss of alertness, calm, etc., because they really hate meditation. They said they were taught meditation throughout school, but never did it because they didn't like it. Participant JX said that the thoughts were wandering to the point where my mind went blank. They said it was a feeling of numbness, but it was good, and that it was a feeling of knowing nothing is happening, but not wanting to do anything about it. They said that in the periods where their mind was blank, they wouldn't know that. They would only know their mind had been blank after it happened. Participant Z3 said that they didn't have any thoughts in the session. They said that they didn't hear my words in the monologue and that they could answer basic questions about the instructions, but that they didn't know anything beyond that. They said that they had realized from the session that meditation can really help you relax. You can see from these conversations, there are indications that even in the first session, some do-nothing participants were moving into the stillness. These participants may have only been having a shallow experience of the stillness, but the understanding in do-nothing practice is that the experience deepens with further practice. To summarize my presentation, my research provides multiple lines of evidence indicating that do-nothing practice represents a shortcut to complete stillness of mind or pure consciousness. We need much more research, but if this is correct, it has significant implications for both consciousness research and human well-being. Thank you.